Hey, you.
Huh?
Do you like anime?
Yeah.
Do you like Oppai?
Fuck yeah.
Do you enjoy murdering women by the hundreds?
Wait, what?
Then have I got the game for you. Code Vein. Where the only thing bigger than your kill count is everyone's fucking cup size.
You know what, Japan? You've already brought me down to depths of degeneracy thought impossible by mere normies. Yet here I am, getting my ass stomped by stripper monster girls, and I can't tell if my erection is from them titties or the brutal bodily devastation that's constantly being inflicted on my little Neko boy's feminine penis. Yet here I am, playing through anime Dark Souls, fighting bosses and stroking my confused dick. I think it's a bit misleading to call this game anime Dark Souls. When I think Dark Souls, I think about a lone undead wandering a fantastical world as they try to figure out what the fuck went wrong, all while a bunch of jackasses try to feed you your own dick for dinner. But aside from the unsolicited penile asphyxiation, Code Vein is rather distinct from Dark Souls in basically every other category. Take the story, for example. Instead of giving you glimpses of what's really going on through item descriptions and limited character dialogue, Code Vein just goes full-on anime plot as it ceaselessly vomits line after line of unnecessarily obvious dialogue at you until even the most brain-dead of SAO fans could understand what's going on. It's a rather heavy-handed method of storytelling that I feel only serves to harm the plot, as I spend most cutscenes either like this. What's the fucking point of this? Why is he talking to us about onigiri? This doesn't fucking matter to anything. Seriously, dude, just shut the fuck up and let me kill stuff. And the rest of them, like this. You know, there is such a thing as too big. It really does make it hard to be invested when you just keep hearing the same inane tripe over and over again during cutscenes where nothing really happens and everyone just stands in a circle speaking around your mute ass. And you know what? That's another thing. Why the fuck do I get to choose a voice style in character creation if my character never talks? No joke. Your character spends the whole game either getting talked at by everyone else or just being completely ignored as everyone else talks amongst themselves in a startlingly accurate representation of me at a party. It is hard to state just how much this one thing disconnected me from the game's story. It didn't feel like I was a participant in what was going on. It felt like I was just some convenient plot device in the shape of a kawaii Neko. And honestly, that's a shame, especially considering how much time the game dedicates to the plot through cutscenes, memory vestiges, and character dialogue. I mean, in total, it adds up to like a couple hours of your character just sitting on the sidelines, watching everything unfold, and occasionally pulling their fucking special anime plot powers out to advance the story. That said, if you can get around the heavy-handedness of it, it's not a terrible story as stories go. They do a good job of slowly revealing the scope of what's going on, and there's some genuinely good character moments, some that even made my dead heart feel something. But I get the feeling that I'll forget all the characters and their struggles within a few days. None of the characters are as memorable as Lautrec, Patches, or Solaire, and all of their stories are pretty generic as backstories go. Admittedly, this doesn't make them bad characters. They pull off their tropes fine. It just means they're forgettable. So what about the combat then? From a quick glance, it really looks like nothing more than weebified Dark Souls. You kill enemies to collect Haze as you go between Mistles, and if you die, you drop all your Haze and have to go back and pick it up. But there's quite a few things that I think this game does better than Dark Souls. Namely, its blood codes and gifts. The blood codes are, essentially, just different classes. Each one has different base stats and unique gifts, which are comprised of passive buffs you can put on, or active skills that cost Icker to use, which is just their fancy term for mana. Icker? Itcher?
Ichor.
That sounds fucking dumb. I'm just gonna call it mana. There's two things that I really like about this system. The first is that you can change your blood code at any time and at no cost. This allows you to change up your playstyle at will if you find out your build sucks fucking nuts, or if you just want to try out some different gifts. And the second reason is they allow you to master each code's gifts by either killing enough enemies with them on, or by spending resources. And once mastered, you can use those gifts with any other code. This allows for a lot of versatility in your build, and it had me using and trying quite a few different gifts throughout the course of the game to see what worked for me. They even use this to encourage exploration and provide more story by locking certain abilities behind memory vestiges hidden out in the world. And once you find them, you can take them to this pair of tits with legs, and you can live through those memories and unlock a skill for the blood code it was associated with. I really like this method of unlocking new gifts. In theory, anyway. In practice, I'll often end up with multiple memory vestiges after going through an area and have to spend the next 10 minutes fucking slowly walking through the void while looking at static scenes and, once again, watching as things happen around my character. It doesn't help that half the time, I didn't even know who the fuck the person with the memory was until it was done and one of the hanger-ons in my home base fucking teleports over to me and comments on the memory that I just saw that they weren't there for but they somehow know about anyway. And yes, I know it's implied that they either experienced it with me or I told them about it afterwards, but it's just such a clumsy way to go about it, when surely it would have made more sense to have that person in the memory with me, commenting on it as it's happening, instead of cornering me as I come down from my fucking hallucination just so they can shoot their feelings all over my mute trap's face like a money shot I wasn't prepared for. But hey, narrative bukkake isn't the worst fetish, and to be fair, all these memories and their associated dialogue is skippable. I just didn't want to skip it since it was my first playthrough. And for my first playthrough, I found this game to be on the easier side for Souls-like, and a lot of the reason for that is because every enemy in the game, regardless of size or weapon they're using, is pretty easily parryable or backstabbable. And while I put enough time into Dark Souls 1 and 3 to get all their achievements, but not Dark Souls 2, that game can go drown in a fucking septic tank, I was never a parry god. Yet, in Code Vein, I can parry the vast majority of enemies constantly, and the ones that I can't, I can just backstab instead. I mean, maybe I did just become a parry god despite not playing a Souls-like game in over a year, but I feel it's more likely that this game just has more forgiving parry frames than Dark Souls, and I think I know why that's the case. See, when you parry or backstab an enemy, it both gives you mana and increases your current mana cap up to a number defined by your blood code, at least until you use another bonfire, which then resets it back down. And I'm thinking it's this mechanic that caused him to make parrying more forgiving, and also to make basically every enemy backstabbable. However, it does mean that if you get the timings down, there's basically no reason to use anything but parries and backstabs, since they do such good damage, and they benefit your mana reserves. And I mean, this isn't helped by the game using the exact same attacks and attack timings for a lot of the enemies in the game. Seriously, it doesn't matter if you've never seen an enemy before. If they're using a halberd, then you've at least seen some of their attacks before and you know the exact timing to parry it. That's actually one of the few complaints that I have for this game. The enemy variety is really pretty poor, and excluding the dogs, those fucking spiny balls, and some slimes, literally every enemy is a humanoid. Sure, you go to a new area and they might look a bit different, they might have a new attack or two, but they still have all the same attacks as their previous versions, and they're still just as parryable. It's kinda disappointing, because most of the enemies you fight will be like this, and beyond a palette swap and the occasional new attack, they end up feeling the same as their baby brothers you massacred 10 levels ago. That's not to say that every enemy is just a lazy copy-paste with increased stats, though. Occasionally you will get an entirely new enemy to pop up, and these guys tend to fall into one of two categories: challenging and fun, or fucking bullshit. I mean, who the fuck thought this cunt was a good idea? I would love to have been there while this son of a bitch was getting designed, so that I could tell whoever proposed his nigh uninterruptible 90% damage resist buff to get fucked. And yes, I know that enough fire damage will dispel the buff, but unless your current code has a fire buff already unlocked, that means you have to spend the souls to unlock it, spend the resources to master it, and then fit it into your skill bar just so you can try, not guarantee, but try to counter a single enemy's buff. That is not stimulating gameplay. That is fucking asinine design. Or you could just lure the fat fucks off the edge like they deserve. In all fairness, it's also possible that these enemies would have been a lot easier if I'd actually used one of the NPC companions that the game provides. I just didn't see any reason to have a companion with me for the vast majority of the game, especially since having them around removes a lot of the challenge from most areas. I mean, realistically, none of the areas are any harder than something you could find in any of the Souls games, especially considering the relative ease with which you can backstab and parry. And there's very few instances where I felt that I needed a second body around to help. So, outside a few boss fights that were clearly balanced around having two people, I played the whole thing solo just to keep the challenge up, and I still thought the game was a bit easier than Dark Souls 2 or 3. It may seem like I'm pretty down on this game, considering I've spent most of this video talking about all the things I dislike, but I actually quite enjoyed it. By the time I beat the final boss, I was ready to start again on New Game Plus. And had it not been 2 a.m. with work looming only a few hours away, I absolutely would have right then. It's definitely not perfect, and there's certainly some spots that feel a bit bullshit, especially solo. But I would still wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone who enjoys the Souls-like style of gameplay. Oh, and anyone who enjoys big anime titties too.